Have you seen the carnivore bullshit?
Carnivore like
forums and
pages and stuff of people being like, so when does the explosive diarrhea stop? So I have really terrible acne and I'm getting like yellow bags under my eyes and my hair's falling out. But otherwise I feel great.
When you put death into your body and that's all you're eating, don't come complaining when you have keto crotch and weird green stuff coming out of your ears, okay?
Nasty.
Speaking of people that eat meat and things that might be coming out of them, I recently started going on a few dates. Not all of the people are vegan. What the hell is up, you guys? My name is Jamie Logan, and today I am here to introduce season 2 of Jamie's Corner podcast. And what better way to do that than with one of my favorite guests, Ashley Byrne.
Yay.
Ashley is the director of outreach at PETA. She's been with PETA for over 15 years. And I mean, you're a freaking warrior for the animals.
Oh my God, Jamie, thank you. As are you.
So much to learn from you. And today we have a really fun episode in store. We're going to talk about our latest dating, horror stories, catch up. And then we're also going to talk about some of the latest news and updates, victories, some challenges in the animal rights world, and what we can do about it.
Yeah.
And Ashley and I started an Instagram live show where we sometimes catch up on the latest news. So there's definitely things I want to talk about when it comes to that.
So many things, because I feel like we could be literally doing that twice a week and we wouldn't be covering everything.
I know.
Because there's so much that's good and so much that we need to fix that's just in the news every day. But that's a sign of our momentum.
Mm-hmm. We're powerful. I mean, especially PETA. It's like when PETA points their gun and has a target, that damn target better be afraid because we will win.
Yes, we will. And thank you. I love that. That's honestly one of my favorite compliments when people are like, ooh, PETA, like if PETA's calling you, you need to be scared. Because you do. Yeah. You absolutely do. Mm-hmm. PETA is relentless and creative and just will not stop. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I always love hearing that above all other things.
Until every cage is empty.
Right.
Yes.
We'll get there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, really hitting on every single industry. And of course, that's why you get the pushback. That's why people are like, hating on PETA because they feel that threat.
Right.
I mean, the meat industry especially puts out all that fake propaganda about PETA.
Oh, constantly. And again, like you said, I mean, that's how you know that they're feeling it. Because they'd be ignoring us if we weren't a giant threat to them. And if they didn't know that they're wrong, and if they didn't know that people would want nothing to do with them if they actually had to be exposed to the truth about everything they do behind the scenes and everything that meat does to us when we eat it.
How long have you been vegan again?
I was trying to figure this out the other night. 29 years.
Holy shit.
Yes. Isn't that insane?
This is why you're glowing from the inside out.
Thank you.
Oh, wow. One day I'll be able to say that. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's really, I feel like I have such incredible perspective on things because of that. Because obviously, I feel like I'm always saying this, but this will never happen fast enough. This, animal rights victories will never happen quickly enough. We want them done now because the animals are suffering now. However, I've actually been in this long enough to be able to see what incredible change and momentum and, how much the world has shifted. And we're a relatively young movement. So we really have accomplished so much in a pretty short amount of time. Yeah. And it's only the beginning. It's just going to keep snowballing. So, I appreciate the perspective that I have from having been seeing all this happen since the 90s when no one knew what a vegan was. And when the vegan option was iceberg lettuce, usually, if you were, anywhere but one of the very few vegan or vegetarian restaurants, things have changed so much.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, being that it's important, I think, as activists to keep our eye on the prize and be strategic about our targets and what we aim to change, because that's how we're able to measure it. Right. Recently, we accomplished a victory with Starbucks.
Yes.
Tell me about that and what that campaign was all about.
Yes. After a vigorous campaign by PETA, Starbucks announced, and other groups, animal rights activists, but PETA really took this on in a big way, against Starbucks having an upcharge, a significant upcharge for their non-dairy options. Mm-hmm. They have just announced that as of, I believe it's November 7th, they'll be dropping the upcharge on non-dairy milks.
Amazing.
And this is a huge deal for several reasons. I mean, first of all, just because of the position that Starbucks occupies in the industry. If they do it, everyone will eventually do it. Like, now that they've announced this, it's just going to ripple throughout the industry. But Starbucks alone making this shift represents such a massive amount of milk, of dairy. And without that upcharge, I mean, obviously, you and I, like, we're not getting our latte with cow's milk. It does not matter what the upcharge is. There is nothing they could charge that would cause us to do that. But there are a lot of people who, if they're given the option of oat milk, of, soy, coconut, they'll take it. But if there's a 70-cent upcharge on, an already $6 or $7 drink, they might not. And so removing this, you're just removing that obstacle. And then when you actually consider the amount of business that Starbucks does, the amount of dairy they sell, it's actually pretty mind-blowing. And what's interesting is, for so long, they've been touting, these environmental goals that they have. They were missing them by a long shot, and the biggest reason why is their carbon footprint from animal products.
Wow.
So, this is actually them taking a step in the direction of walking the walk. So, great.
I think that's amazing. That's a huge news. I mean, this has been something that I remember 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
Being in a Starbucks actually at Rutgers University at my college, and we were occupying the Starbucks. we didn't glue our hands to that particular counter. Been there, done that in other Starbucks. But we did get thrown out, and it was a big deal. But I was talking to many students outside campus, and everybody that I spoke to throughout various protests that I went to for this campaign, they were saying, yeah, absolutely. If given the option where it's the same price, of course I'm going to choose the more environmentally friendly plant milk. I'm going to choose the plant milk that doesn't cause harm to animals.
Right.
It's a no-brainer. And it's like,
no-brainer.
why should somebody that just wants to make the more compassionate choice be punished for that?
Well, especially if you're a business that is claiming to be environmentally friendly.
Yeah.
Well, if you're de-incentivizing people from ordering the most environmentally friendly option, that's, you're greenwashing. So, yeah. Speaking of gluing hands to counters, I think it was just a few blocks from here where James Cromwell glued his hand to a Starbucks counter.
Thank you for your service, James.
Yes, we love you so much. I had the pleasure of being there. Actually, I think I glued his hand to the counter.
It was you.
It was me. And I mean, the pressure of gluing the hand of this man who is a national treasure, this Oscar-winning actor who everybody loves because, oh my God, he's amazing. I was like, I cannot, James Cromwell cannot get hurt. Yeah. Fortunately, he didn't. He's still,
He didn't lose a hand.
He did not lose a hand. He's still fighting with both hands for animals and a bunch of other amazing causes.
It just goes to show the urgency of this issue, and that we are willing to do whatever it takes to really raise awareness and to get these industries to change and to, like they just did, make plant milk the better choice, the choice that doesn't charge people more for just wanting to do the right thing. I mean, with the dairy industry, guys, you've probably heard this on many of my other podcasts, but it is a slaughter industry. Please know that the dairy industry kills animals, that every single cow in the dairy industry, she's got to be impregnated, has to have a baby to produce milk. So when we take that milk away, the baby boy is sent to the slaughterhouse, and the mother, and she will also be killed eventually.
Right. If you are drinking milk, you are exploiting a female's reproductive system.
Yes.
You are violating her body without her consent. So if you're drinking milk, don't, also be telling me about the patriarchy, because you are the patriarchy.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This goes for cheese and ice cream too, people.
Right.
But I think this is just so great, and it's sending waves throughout the industry as a whole. And so what an amazing victory. You had mentioned right before we started this episode that there's something else going on, that the dairy industry is clearly so desperate that they have. Tell me about what's going on.
They are so desperate. So many people have stopped drinking milk, and they know that especially younger generations don't want anything to do with milk. Think milk is disgusting, which it is. So they are using every nasty little manipulative tool in their toolbox to try and win people back, especially women. And the ways that they're targeting women are so gross. For example, this makes me so angry. In the next couple of weeks, there is a women's marathon that takes place every year in Savannah, Georgia. It was called the Women's Marathon. Now it's been rebranded as the Milk Marathon, and the dairy industry is sponsoring it.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. They're trying to push milk now as a sports drink, an athletic drink, which is the most disgusting. Like, let's put all the ethics aside for a minute. I honestly cannot think of a more disgusting thing to drink before or after you work out than milk.
Breast milk.
Right? Ew.
From a cow.
Ew. No, never. And and the thing is, it's so disingenuous. It's just a flat out lie to try and get anyone, especially women, to try and drink this as some, while they're trying to do something healthy and beneficial for themselves. I mean, milk has been shown to be linked to inflammation, slower recovery for athletes. For women especially, the more milk they consume, that's linked to them having lower bone density and higher rates of osteoporosis.
Wow.
So it's seriously, it is such a dirty trick for them to be targeting women in this way. And then when you bring in everything that we just discussed, this idea of this marathon that's supposed to be about empowering women, and now they're doing it on the backs of these mothers who are being sexually violated by the dairy industry and having their babies taken away. Like, it's disgusting.
So how can we fight against this? What can people do?
Well, they can't, PETA has resources on our website to contact the organizers of the marathon, to contact the other sponsors and ask them to drop out, which some have. And we'll be there protesting. So anyone who is in the area of Savannah, Georgia, who wants to join, by all means. I wish I was going to be there. This makes me so angry as a woman, as a feminist, as a runner. Like, it's everything about it makes me furious.
Yeah. As an animal lover, to know that they're pushing breast milk on these. Yeah, it's a torture industry, and it's just it's horrible to see how the dairy industry will go to any lengths to push their products despite the health risks, the environmental concerns, and the animal cruelty.
Well, and it's what you said. It's desperation.
Despicable.
They know that they're falling out of favor, and so they're just trying everything they can to stay relevant, to bring people back. In the long run, it's not going to work. No. But in the short term, seeing the different things that they're doing is pretty gross.
Although you do see the pushback of how they are actually not only making events like that, but they're using social media influencers and paying them to promote raw milk. And have you seen the carnivore bullshit?
Oh my God. Like, that has to be we're living in a very absurd time. We're living in a time of a lot of absurdity, a lot of conspiracy theories, like a lot of just pure idiot stuff online. But that has to be some of the most just insane, absurd misinformation. And the fact that, like, and the thing is, of course, it's getting attention because it's so absurd. Anytime you do something really outlandish, it's going to get attention. It's going to get views online.
It's like, call me in 5 years when you have heart disease, your arteries are clogged. It's like, oh, wait, you won't be able to. You'll be dead.
Right? Well, there's actually this amazing Instagram account called Carnivore Cringe.
I saw that.
It's so incredible where the person who runs it pulls all of these posts from like carnivore, like
forums and
pages and stuff of people being like, so when does the explosive diarrhea stop? So I have really terrible acne and I'm getting like yellow bags under my eyes and my hair is falling out. But, otherwise I feel great. So glad I'm doing this.
So glad I'm doing this right.
Insane.
It's like your whole entire body's falling apart, yet they can't put two and two together that, maybe just like only eating animal flesh is not the optimal thing to do.
Just maybe. Yeah. I mean, well, and the thing is, so many of these people have been exposed as frauds, like have been, these influencers doing it. It's been exposed that they don't actually follow it. Like, was it the Liver King where all those texts got released from his steroid dealer where, he was like, I need my stuff. Like, I need people to keep like believing me, basically.
What a loser. So it's like at the expense of all those freaking animals that you are responsible for their deaths, basically.
Right. Not to mention all the people who you're basically selling them an eating disorder. Yeah. Which, like the lion diet. That is what that is. I mean, eating nothing but red meat and salt. Ooh. That's an eating disorder. And it's one that's going to kill you fast. And the thing is also, like, if you see, they took a bunch of these people to testify before Congress. I'm sure there was, a lot of like ag lobbyist money behind that. But they took them to testify before Congress recently. And first of all, if you watch like the video, filters are carrying a lot of the load for these people on Instagram. Like, you see them in person and it's like their skin is gray. Yeah. They're not looking too good. Surprise. And
filters are going a long way. It's absolutely insane. Yeah. Look, when you fill your body with life and plants and that your body thrives on that. When you put death into your body, rotting corpse, and that's all you're eating, don't come complaining when you have keto crotch and when you have weird green stuff coming out of your ears. God, okay?
Nasty. So gross.
Actually disgusting. So speaking of this, people that eat meat and things that might be coming out of them. No. I recently started going on a few dates with people.
Oh yeah, let's get into it.
I think we're ready. Yeah. We're ready to talk about this. And just playing out the field. I mean, I was in a relationship for 4 years and with a vegan. And I mean, I love him. We're still very good friends, but it's just not working right now with my travel and so on and so forth. But I started going on a few dates and not all of the people are vegan.
Well, and so I was going to say, let's break that down first, because different people have different approaches to this. There are some people who are like, I will only date vegans. I will only even like, if someone is like already there. And then there are people who are, who kind of see everyone as a potential vegan. And yeah, I mean, there's a whole spectrum of how people approach this.
Totally.
So what's your take on this?
My take on it is that casually I will go on a few dates with people that are not vegan, feel it out, and potentially I will hopefully try to help them make the connection like I once did, because I wasn't always vegan, so
I get that.
the dating pool is so small. If I only dated vegans, I probably wouldn't date ever again. I don't know.
Well, and I also understand that, because now I'm surrounded by tons of amazing vegans all the time. But when I first went vegan, I barely knew any.
Yeah.
And so it just, exactly. You would just be sort of ruling out like almost everybody.
Totally. And I mean, with my last partner, he wasn't vegan when we started dating, but I think once things start to get serious, that's when they either have to change or you just can't do it.
Yeah.
I think that is the clear distinction, is that like, if in order to spend your life with somebody and to be that close with somebody, I think it's important to have shared values. And something as simple as wanting peace on earth and not wanting animals to be harmed, and being that food is such an integral part of our everyday lives, it truly only makes sense, at least for me, to be with somebody that also sees the world in that same way.
Right. Well, to me, on top of that, I mean, again, I have not always been vegan. Not everybody knows what I know. However, I think, basically the entire time I've been vegan, where my thoughts have been about this is that once someone knows what I know, once they're seeing the things that I see, once they have the full story, the full picture, if they know all these details and then it's not moving them, it's not changing them, I would just lose respect for them.
They're actually a psychopath.
Right, yeah. I would just be like, you must have no emotional intelligence or just no ethics.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I get it. Not everybody knows all of this yet. But once you do, it's just, I mean, again, you need to respect the person you're with.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, is it's like you walk this line of like, okay, how much information do I release? Do I say the V word on the first date? Do I...
But wait, like, okay, is it even possible for anyone to go out with you and not know this about you? Because it's literally your unless you go out with someone by like bumping into them on the street and they don't have your social media, you're not wearing like a vegan shirt. I mean,
they know. Have to know.
How could they not know?
Listen. So I started, dating a little bit here and there, and I made a Hinge account.
Okay.
And I was like, I just want to because I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship, let me just go on a date and whatever, see how it goes. Not really.
Did you drop the V-bomb on the Hinge account, or did you not?
I put this is hilarious. Of course I have to like show a little something, because I mean, then it's just going to be like, whoa, like when I first meet them and then it comes out of nowhere. Like I got to drop it a little bit. So what I did was, in one of my photos, I put my Coach runway crash on there.
Okay.
And I said, the moment I knew my modeling career was over.
Also, because that's iconic. And anyone who doesn't love that is not going to get you.
Well, it's funny because I have people on there that message me. They're like, oh my God, I remember this. I saw this.
Everybody saw that.
It was funny. So anyway, one of the people that I was talking to, it was actually this girl. And she messages me on Hinge, and she's like, are you a PETA girly? And I was like, hell yeah. Are you? The real question is, are you?
Right.
So she goes, I saw Chimp Crazy and I'm low-key converted.
Okay, love that.
So I was like, okay. Yeah. If you guys haven't seen Chimp Crazy on Hulu, it's great. Yeah. Watch it. And PETA's featured heavily in there. So I was like, okay. So we ended up planning a date. We went to grab a drink on the Lower East Side. And I wasn't expecting too much of it, but we had a great time. And she did reveal that she works for the Wildlife and Fish Conservation.
So wait, aren't those basically basically just like hunters and fishermen
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. I think. So that's
Bit
a
of
red
an odd.
flag.
Yeah.
We're going to have to get her to quit.
Have you guys talked about that any further? Like, what is she?
Not really.
Okay. So that's been a little off the table.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So she mentioned that, and obviously she knows my stance on it because after the first date, she then is like, "What's your Instagram?" And I was like, "Ooh, okay. If I send this over, I'm gonna have to take a few deep breaths here. This could be the bomb that ends it all." So I took a deep breath.
Like, brace yourself.
Brace yourself, honey, because it's coming in hot.
Yeah.
So I put the Instagram handle in the text, and my hand is shaking, and I then press send. I sent it. And I didn't hear back for maybe like 5 minutes, and I could barely, I thought I was gonna
She's scrolling. She's like,
she's scrolling, she's looking, she's looking, and I'm just barely able to breathe.
Yeah.
And then I heard from her after like 5 minutes, and she was like, "Oh my God," she's like, "You were on Pierce Morgan. You have to send me that clip." Like, she seemed sort of into it.
Of course. Like,
Ish.
I think any just psychotic and defensive person is going to be so into, just the badass activism, the standing for what you believe in.
Yeah, and listen, if she's not, then bye, on to the next. Like,
Yeah.
I don't need to waste my time with you. You know what I
Right,
mean? I'm not
exactly.
changing for anybody.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
If anything, I will only be getting worse. Okay? So it gets weirder, you guys. Okay? So whatever, we're talking. I see her another time. We go out, and then I invite her to my Halloween party. Okay? And I'm like, "You should come through. It'll be fun." And we were talking about it. And I'm like, "So what are you going to wear to the Halloween party?" She goes, "Well, there's this iconic stop, the J Brooklyn stop, that I kind of wanted to dress up as the Popeyes Checkers, because it's like everybody knows that stop there."
Oh.
And I was like, "Did I just
wait,
what? I'm confused."
Did she know this is a vegan Halloween party at a vegan restaurant with a vegan superstar? Like, I feel like something's missing.
I am so confused at this point. And so I'm like, okay, how do I respond in like a way that's like cool and not like, super aggressive, because I really want it to be. But so I said, "I think you can do something way hotter than that."
Okay. All right. That's so diplomatic.
Thank you.
Love that.
And she goes, "Like what?" And I was like, the first thing that came to mind was like a lettuce lady from PETA or like a soy nugget. I don't know. These are just the things that I was thinking of. So I go, like a lettuce lady or a soy nugget? And she goes, "How is that hotter?" I'm like, "Then Popeyes and Checkers?
Have you seen a lettuce lady?
Anything is hotter than than Popeyes and Checkers." So
Even
then
people who eat meat think Popeyes and Checkers are gross.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, "I would tap, just saying." So she's like, "Well, in that case," so then I got her like off the Popeyes Checkers idea. Thank God.
Good.
But then she goes, "Well, just to be clear, it's not that I like Popeyes and Checkers. It's just I thought it would just be an iconic stop out in the subway." And I'm like, "Dude, like if she showed up at my party like that, I would have to pretend I didn't know her." Can you imagine what to do? So then I thought that was super weird. And then Halloween rolls around, and I had like 3 people there that I like was potentially dating. And
Oh, wow. So you're just jumping right in.
so jumping right in. One of them was my ex-boyfriend, who I love dearly. And
He's wonderful.
he's great.
Yeah.
But I didn't need her being there too. So she didn't end up coming, thank
Okay,
God.
good. That's good.
But then this is another weird thing with this girl. We're at this bar, and I purposefully meet up with her at a bar so that we don't have to, I don't know, eat together. Okay? Well, we're sitting there, we're chatting, we're having a great time, and she asks me if I would mind if she ordered the cheese pizza.
Stop.
At this bar.
Why? Like, if you have to ask if someone minds, maybe you just shouldn't be doing it. Like,
why were you not there?
I know.
Guys, has this happened to you before? Because in the moment, you're like, you start sweating, your hands get clammy. I'm going through all these different scenarios and emotions in my mind. The first scenario that goes is I just slam my fist on the table and get up and leave. But then she's going to think vegans are weird and crazy forever. The second scenario is I just bite my tongue and just sit there and maybe try to advocate in another way and then send her horrific dairy videos later on. The third option is to maybe turn my back and meet somebody else in the bar. And I don't know. It's like what to do. So I'm really trying to find an approach where like I don't turn people off to veganism. I always want to leave them feeling positively about it. And so I just turned to her and I said, listen, I can't force you one way or the other to not order it. You're going to do what you're going to do. I certainly am not eating any of it, but don't say sorry to me, say sorry to the animals.
Right? Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
So it was a little weird, for sure, and she freaking ordered it and ate it, and I'm like, ooh, like, I don't know if I ever want to see you again.
It's a bummer.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I haven't really been talking much to her. If I see her, but I'm trying just to like at least plant little vegan seeds. And the best part about like being single and dating is like you can really turn people vegan just through dating and just it's nice.
Yeah, no, I mean, you meet a lot of guys who say, I mean, both women and men, but I feel like you especially meet a lot of men who say that they went vegan because they started dating someone who was vegan.
Yes.
I think that happens
yes.
a lot. Okay, so I have like the all-time horror story, which was
oh God, worse than these stories.
I think this is pretty bad. Back in college, you know, I met some guy one night when I was just, you know, out at a bar, and we started talking about our dogs. So obviously, like that right away is a huge click.
Oh yeah. Major green flag.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he asked for my number. I gave it to him. It was right before the holidays. So we decided we would go out right after the holidays when we were both back in town. Other than that, you know, didn't talk, just no communication. I literally knew nothing about him. He knew nothing about me, except that we both had dogs who we really, really loved. So we make plans to hang out. We go out to dinner. We sit down. And I didn't think he was a vegan. I didn't have any reason to think he was. We sit down, we order, and then we start chatting. And he asked me what I got for Christmas. And so, you know, I mentioned a few things, whatever. And I was like, what about you? And he's like, a new gun. And I was like, wait, excuse me? And he's like, yeah, a new gun. My sister and I both got guns. And I was like, well, you're not a hunter, are you? And he's like, yeah. Yes.
No.
Yes. And I'm
Who
like,
does he hunt?
Right? And I was like, oh, I'm a vegan. And he's like, oh. And I was like, and an animal rights activist. And we had literally just placed our orders. It's like we placed our orders. It's the very beginning of the night, but just like a little too late to actually just, you know, get up and walk out. So,
buddy, he's got the wrong crowd.
I just, and the thing is, you weren't going to be running into a lot of that in my college town. It's not like it was the kind of place where I sort of had to like be on the alert. Like, any, it was a rare thing. So I don't know how
Yeah.
whatever. We found, I think we talked a little bit about why I was vegan and why he thought that it was okay to murder animals for fun. And and then I think for the rest of the night, maybe we just talked about our dogs or something and went our separate ways. I did continue bumping into him because it turned out that he worked at my favorite sushi place.
No.
Yeah. So,
what a story. That's crazy.
I was like, how does this happen?
Here's what the hunters always say. And I think that girl that I was telling you about had slightly brought it up and mentioned it.
Yeah.
But I haven't really like hit her yet with my side.
Yeah.
Which is that they say that they are there for conservation and that they are helping keep the populations in check. How would you answer that?
That's like when men used to say that they read Playboy for the articles so their wives wouldn't get mad at them. So true. No, you don't. Yeah. And it's kind of funny to talk about Playboy now because it just, it seems so kind of quaint, like we're like in the era of OnlyFans. But, you remember back, that was sort of the thing. Men would be like, oh, I read it for the articles.
It's just the perfect analogy.
Stop lying.
It's like, the perfect analogy.
I do it for conservation. I'm killing the animals to help them. No, you don't. You're not. Yeah.
You're not helping anybody.
Or like when people oppress women and say it's to protect them, no.
Well, they'll bring up invasive species. So there's a few levels to this, and if somebody brings this up to you guys, there's a few ways of answering it. Number one is that in a lot of these areas where hunting is permitted, they actually are responsible for the overbreeding because they'll breed animals and then release them.
Exactly.
So that there's more animals for the hunters to hunt. So that's number one. I would look into that. It's really fucked up. Number two is that the hunters actually throw off the population of the male to females. So the deer reproduce more than they would. Number three is that the best way, if we really cared about their population numbers, would be to use contraceptives as a way. So you could put it in the food, kind of like what New York is doing with the rats now.
Right.
Where you could help their populations decline in other ways as opposed to killing them.
Yeah, but then people don't have the fun of going out and, killing animals because they have some problem with their masculinity.
Right. And then they always say, it's for population control. And I'm like, well, clearly there's still a problem. So your hunting isn't helping.
No, it's for your fragile ego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because you're compensating for something else.
Yes, exactly.
We know it.
Yeah.
We know it.
Yes, we do.
Let's be real here. That's so funny that we both went on dates with hunters without even knowing it.
Oh my God. I know, right? Watch out. They're out there. Be careful.
They come out when you least expect
They
it.
should make them wear some kind of identification, so you can see them coming.
Oh, yeah, I know. Sometimes they put on the camo gear.
I know, but camo's everywhere now. That's the problem. They could, I
wouldn't want to mistake somebody for one of them.
Right? It could just be streetwear.
Oh, Lord. Well, it's definitely interesting navigating this scene of dating, but it's so not my priority right now. I've been so caught up in animal rights activism. I just came back from a tour with Allied Scholars for Animal Protection. We were talking to students on campus about animal rights.
Oh, that's amazing.
It was so cool. And I really do find that students are open-minded for the most part, but what I've realized is it's the same 5 to 10 excuses that people have. They are so deeply brainwashed.
That's the thing. It's when people are wrong, they tend to not be that original. They're just sort of falling back on when you hear the words coming out of their mouths and you're like, this doesn't even sound like you. This is something that you Yeah. Something you saw on Instagram and you thought it would be a good excuse.
Yet they say it like as if it's original. And
Yeah.
It's the first time. So I try to treat every interaction like it's a new one. I'm like, oh my God, that's such a great point. Like, thank you for bringing that up. And well, here's actually why we shouldn't kill animals.
Oh, plants have feelings. That's just a great point. Thank you for bringing that up.
Never thought of that. Oh, yeah. So funny. But I'll definitely be releasing a bunch of content with that coming out soon.
That'll be good.
Just, I mean, there's been so much traveling and there's been so much in the news happening with animal rights stuff. Like, we really do need to go back to our regular Instagram live series.
We do, because every day there is something.
Yeah. What's some of the latest stories or things that you've been seeing?
In addition to there being constantly, so many stories in the news these days about the advancement of cultivated meat, the pushback from the industry trying to, pass laws against cultivated meat because they know that it's going to make them obsolete. I mean, I feel like that's just like ongoing, and every single day I see some story about that. And a lot of them from outside the US, which if we keep passing these ridiculous laws, what's going to happen is that other countries are going to bypass us and just, be out ahead of us on this.
Yeah.
Another thing that I think has been, getting a fair amount of attention is, people have been talking after Chimp Crazy, especially, about this issue that I think a lot of people don't realize how it's still legal to have exotic animals as pets in so many places in the United States. They don't realize until some tragedy happens, until something crazy happens and it makes the news, because obviously it's usually like not out there in front of everyone. It's, similar to Chimp Crazy, where they're being, kept in a basement by a crazy person, or like exploited at some disgusting, attraction. But again, usually like not in the middle of New York City. It's going to be like out in the public eye somewhere. So that's definitely something that is that I've seen a lot of talk about since Chimp Crazy came out. And people should know that there's actually legislation right now that, is in progress that would ban this. And they can go to PETA's website for more information on that.
We absolutely need to.
Yeah, totally.
It's really, really scary, some of the things that happen to those animals, creatures that are meant to, climb in trees and experience fresh air and walk miles and miles a day and be in the wild. Like, they're not meant to be living in somebody's freaking basement.
No, I mean, it's just like for any of us. Can you imagine being held captive by someone who's clearly deranged and in their basement or in a cage in their house and having not only the horrors of captivity and just being deprived of everything that would make you happy or comfortable, but then having that person basically be your only company. I mean, what a nightmare.
It's mental illness. I mean,
it really is.
Because even with Chimp Crazy, you see how this woman, she says she loves her chimps. We don't own animals, but the chimps that were in her care, she was saying that she loves them, but it's like, if you really love them, wouldn't you want them to be happy? And they're not happy. They're banging their heads on their cages, and it's like they're not happy.
And you can apply this not just to animals like, primates. I mean, look at birds. Look at the industry that sells birds as pets, either by stealing them from the wild, or by breeding them. But so often they're actually stolen from their natural habitat. Imagine the horror of living in your, beautiful natural habitat and having all of this space to fly, to be free. And then the next thing you know, you're in a cage, you have, you're taken away from everyone else who's your species. You're, just in someone's living room, basically as an ornament.
Right.
And, it's really, and the thing is, that's so widespread.
Yeah.
I mean, look at how many pet stores in the US still sell birds. Look how many, I mean, thankfully, on Instagram, sometimes the accounts are rescued birds. Like, by all means, someone who has the space, the time, the resources to rescue one of these birds from these horrible situations and give them the most enriched life that they can have, right. Of course they should do that. But, there are also all these accounts with people who, clearly just, like you said, it's they think they love this animal, but you're really not thinking about them. Mm-hmm. It's all about you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think that's what veganism is it's not about ourselves. Right. We don't do it for ourselves.
Right.
That's why veganism it's not about health. It's literally veganism is about the animals. It's about wanting to treat others with respect and letting them be free and be and inhabit the earth in whatever way they want to, is realizing that we don't have control or autonomy over other beings' bodies or lives. That it's not, they're not our feathers, they're not our fur, they're not our skins, it's theirs. They're not our milk, not our eggs, it's theirs. It's not our babies or our lives, it's their lives, and we take everything from them. So I think that it's a clear example of really like what it means to be vegan, like in just this particular situation and circumstance you're describing. And while we're talking about the wild animal thing, there's been a huge story that broke in the news about a squirrel, a rescued squirrel who was seized by, I guess it was the wildlife department, and killed. They killed somebody's pet squirrel that had like a rescued squirrel.
Right. And the thing is, I know there's been a lot of kind of back and forth in terms of discussion about whether all the appropriate permits were there, et cetera, which, a lot of these things are in place to make sure that people aren't unethically, taking wildlife, like taking a squirrel out of, their yard and forcing them to live inside and in a cage. Or, I get that there are regulations in place for a reason. I think, though, that this has really brought up a lot of very interesting points, because so many of the people who are horrified by this, you really hope that they're going to take a wider look. Like, okay, I'm glad you can see the personhood of this squirrel. I'm glad that you can think about, the bond between them and, a person, whatever. So are you able to apply that then to other animals? Are you able to apply that, appreciation of this squirrel's personhood to a chicken who you might eat for dinner tomorrow? Ugh. I mean, you really hope that it is. And I've seen some kind of interesting conversations around this going on social media where, I think sometimes it does, I think sometimes a lot of people are moved to take a deeper look at the ways in which they might be exploiting animals by seeing something that is so upsetting to them that it just jars them into a place of self-examination. I know that was the case for me.
You hope so?
Yeah.
I would hope so. It's like, where is that line drawn? Why care so much about this one individual squirrel versus the billions of chickens that are spending their whole entire lives in cages and being violently slaughtered? Right.
And the thing is, we should care about that individual squirrel because they are an individual.
Yeah.
But we should also care about each one of these other billions of individuals. Right. So it's, it's that whole dynamic of, I mean, when there's one particular animal who gets everyone's attention, you hope that it inspires people to see the individuality of every animal. Totally. And the personhood and the personality and, and the potential that's there with each of these. That's one thing that's always so frustrating to me, the fact that sometimes in trying to defend the horrific things that they do to animals, you'll hear a farmer or someone say, well, the chickens, they would attack each other if they weren't debeaked, or, oh, well, you should see, these pigs would just crush their babies and lie on them if we didn't put them in a gestation crate, you know, things like that. And it's like, okay, well, you're talking about an animal who has been taken completely out of everything that's natural to them and put in the most stressful, degrading, miserable, you know, situation where they literally probably every moment of their lives feel terror, feel that adrenaline, feel that like fight or flight that any of us would feel if we were surrounded by death. And, you know, so no, I'm not going to judge their worth by what they do when you put them in hell. You know, when you put them in a situation where they are literally fighting a losing battle for their own lives.
I would love to see how that farmer would be if we put them in a cage and there were other people around.
Right.
And you're telling me that he wouldn't be freaking out and maybe biting somebody?
Yeah,
or
live in an
hitting?
Elevator for a couple of months with a bunch of
Smelly
random people.
Yeah.
And see how you act. Like,
that's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a really, really great point. Yeah. I mean, what we do to animals, I wouldn't wish it on anyone. It's the worst atrocity that goes on today in terms of scale, especially.
Oh, you know, absolutely. It literally is just the, I mean, it shows us the worst of what we're capable of, I think. And then, you know, of course, the irony is that sometimes then you see the best of people coming through when they are recognizing the, you know, the individuality and the value of an individual animal. Like sometimes, you know, it's the craziest dynamic that people can participate in the worst of the worst of the worst. And then occasionally even those same people, I mean, this makes me think of, you know, Renee from Rowdy Girl Sanctuary telling us about how she's talked to people who raise and kill cows, but then maybe there's one cow who just gets through to them.
Right. And they'll save that one cow, but then send the other ones to the slaughterhouse.
Right.
Yeah. The human mind is very interesting. Very interesting. For me, it's like I feel like going vegan was like the thing that just aligned like the morals I already had with my actions. And it just, No,
I stopped having to rationalize.
I know.
Yeah. I stopped having to think, well, okay, this must be okay because this is probably happening and I hope this is happening and maybe like,
right.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, where is that disconnect? Well, I think, you know, thanks to people like you, we are seeing, thank you. And we're seeing that change. We're not going to stop until we get it. And just like we said in the beginning of this episode, like change is coming and we will be relentless. We will do whatever it takes until we don't have to anymore.
Right.
So as we begin to sort of wrap up this episode, I mean, there's so many things that we could like talk on and on and
I know.
on. Why don't you just share any like final closing thoughts and like also where people can find you? That would be great.
Yes, absolutely. Well, so final thoughts, please go to PETA's website and contact the organizers of the Milk Marathon and the other sponsors and let them know that it is completely unacceptable to have any event centered around empowering women sponsored by an industry that does nothing but exploit females. So please do that. Just do it right now. It'll take 30 seconds. People can find me on Instagram. I'm Ash Loves Mongo. And of course, people can find PETA just at PETA at any of the platforms. So much fun talking to you as always. And yeah, we'll have to do this again because I'm already thinking of so many things we didn't get to. A dating horror story that I'll save for next time is the time a guy bought me a fur coat. We'll file that one away.
Front door.
Yes.
Oh,
for my birthday.
No. Yes. Guys.
Yeah, we'll save that for next time.
You're keeping us on the edge of our seats here. Oh, Lord. It never ends.
Never ends.
Oh, well, thanks so much for watching, you guys. I am at It's Jamie's Corner, and Until next time, we have a bunch of really great episodes coming to you. So like this episode, comment, rate it, subscribe, please. I want to hear from you. I want to hear what you guys want to talk more about. And that way I can add that in here. All right, take care. Bye.
Bye.